We continue now with a K2 on your side investigation. State budgets in Oregon and Washington face gaping holes. Once again, the idea is being floated to legalize and tax marijuana to generate some more money.
But how much does our state stand to gain if that happens? And what are the risks? Anna Song investigates in this K2 special report, Pot of Gold.
It's like another world, the Cannabis Cafe in Northeast Portland, where medical marijuana users gather to take their medicine daily in more ways than I ever knew existed.
And the only thing I do is press it to my mouth.
There's the vaporizer method.
This is total THC, no carcinogenics, none of that.
Peppermint-infused capsules.
I hope you don't mind me.
That's fragrant.
Even pot in a liquid form that apparently goes well with tea.
So just like a teaspoon then?
Actually, I would put two.
These people are all here legally doing what is illegal for the rest of us. And that's something Madeline Martinez wants very much to change. She's Oregon's executive director for the national organization pushing to reform marijuana laws. And with public budgets hurting for money, she sees a golden opportunity to convince people that legalizing marijuana could be a good thing after all.
Why don't we capture the revenue that's just being lost to the criminal market in many regards and bring it to the people? We're the ones who deserve it.
Her group estimates the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, if passed by voters, would generate $140 million a year in revenue, 90% of which would go to the state's general fund, the rest primarily to drug abuse treatment programs.
We could create Cannacare in the state of Oregon.
Cannacare?
Cannacare, because we would be paying for cannabis money used for health care.
We were $9 billion in the hole.
All that money talk is what Washington State Representative Mary Lou Dickerson says inspired her to propose a law permitting the selling of pot at liquor stores with a 15% tax.
By legalizing marijuana and taxing it in Washington, you could raise how much money?
Well, I think eventually we could raise somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million a year. That's a lot of money, and we could use every cent of that for drug and alcohol treatment and prevention.
Representative Dickerson acknowledges that proposing this for her is a low political risk, considering where she lives, just blocks away from Seattle's Green Lake Park, a district known as progressive.
The big surprise to me was that people all over the state are coming out of the woodwork, and they're saying, hey, you go, Mary Lou. We think that marijuana should be legalized.
To me, it's an unrealistic presumption.
Dan Harmon's one of the more outspoken critics of marijuana legalization in Oregon. He's the executive vice president of Hoffman Construction, a company that refuses to accept medical marijuana users as employees.
We all, I suppose, knew that was really a Trojan horse for legalization, and I think that's really what it's become.
He argues making legalization work is based on a mistaken assumption that the people growing it now will allow themselves to be taxed.
To me, it's akin to saying, I grow tomatoes and you're going to tax tomatoes in my backyard. Am I going to voluntarily disclose I'm raising tomatoes and pay a tax to you?
Legalization, according to Chris Gibson, one of Oregon's top anti-drug trafficking officials, does nothing to reduce the criminal element for marijuana. The Mexican drug cartels, for example, that have been growing it in our national forests for years.
They're going to be able to undercut that price, and there's still going to be a black market out there for marijuana grown by them. It's going to come in cheaper. Who do you think people are going to go to? The tax product most, or the cheaper, more potentially more potent version?
Who will have the final say? In Washington, the lawmakers. In Oregon, the voters. And ultimately, if either effort passes, the federal government, which still sees this as much more than a plant.
Marijuana, despite what everybody tells you, is still an illegal drug.
Representative Mary Lou Dickerson's bill was recently voted down in the Washington House, but a Senate version, which simply decriminalizes pot, is still in the works. Additionally, one of the key arguments in support of legalizing marijuana is the legalization of alcohol and how states have managed to tax and regulate that. We'll look at that comparison in part 2 of my report tomorrow morning at 6. I also asked Representative Dickerson if she is a pot smoker herself. I'm on your side investigator Anna Song reporting for K2 News.
Last night here on K2 at 11 o'clock, we looked at the renewed effort to legalize marijuana in Oregon and Washington and how much each state stands to make.
Yeah, well, this morning, On Your Side investigator Anna Song examines its comparisons to alcohol.
If you just listen to one side, you think marijuana is a wonder plant.
Marijuana is safer than alcohol. No one's ever died of a lethal dose of marijuana.
I've met a lot of screwed up people in my days. I've met a lot of potheads in my days. Most of the potheads that I know are not screwed up people.
It even has this Washington state lawmaker, Mary Lou Dickerson, pushing for legalization.
We're treating marijuana like we treated alcohol during Prohibition, and it doesn't make sense.
She wants farmers licensed to raise marijuana crops and liquor stores to sell it with a 15% tax. Just like with alcohol, she says, the money raised can offset the costs of addiction treatment for all kinds of substances. Opponents say this thinking is naive since the real numbers don't measure up.
You would have to tax alcohol in the state 8 times more than you're taxing it now to recover the costs, societal costs that are occurring because of alcohol abuse.
8 times?
8 times more.
Harmon citing a study commissioned by AOI and the Oregon Nurses Foundation. It found that alcohol abuse alone cost the state's economy approximately $3.2 billion in 2006. That's in health care, lost earnings, and crime. And it is an amount 8 times greater than the $395 million in tax revenues collected from alcohol sales. Still, Representative Dickerson remains convinced legalizing marijuana is a solid answer to deep cuts in substance abuse treatment services and drug prevention.
I have to ask this, are you a marijuana user yourself?
No, I'm a 63-year-old grandmother.
Who's never used marijuana?
Oh, no, I used it when I was young, just as probably most of the people in my generation did.
So the last time you smoked, it was maybe, what, 20 years ago?
Oh, much longer than that.
An early fiscal analysis of her bill shows that Washington stands to make nearly $1.7 billion over the next decade if it legalizes marijuana. It was recently voted down in the Washington House, but a Senate version, which simply decriminalizes pot, is still alive. If you'd like to see part 1 of my report, which looks at benefits versus risks of legalizing marijuana, go to the Inside K2 section of KATU.com. I'm On Your Side investigator Anna Song reporting for K2 News.